Welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're going to the cutting edge of plant science, where researchers are combining two very powerful tools to unlock the secrets of how plants respond to drought. So, ready to jump in?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, so what are these tools? You've got me intrigued.
Well, we're talking about the plant array system and solar-induced fluorescence, or SEIF.
SEIF, okay.
Yeah. Now, imagine plant array as like a super sophisticated fitness tracker,
Okay.
but for plants. It's a greenhouse setup that monitors everything, from how much water a plant is using to how well its pores are breathing, all in real time.
But what about this SIF thing? Is this where it gets all sci-fi?
It kind of is. Think of it like plants emitting a secret glow.
A secret glow.
Yeah, invisible to our eyes,
Okay.
but detectable with special instruments. This glow, or SIF, tells us how efficiently they're converting sunlight into energy through photosynthesis.
And researchers are combining these two methods to understand how plants deal with drought.
Exactly. And this research focused on tomato plants, specifically 3 different types with varying levels of drought tolerance. They put these plants through a simulated drought in a greenhouse, using the plant array to track their every sip of water,
Got it.
and SIFE to see how their energy production was affected.
Okay, so we've got our plant contestant, our controlled drought, and our two incredible tools monitoring their every move.
Yeah.
So what did they find? Did the drought-tolerant tomatoes just sail through the dry spell while the others struggled?
Well, the plant array results were pretty much as expected. The drought-tolerant varieties were much better at conserving water.
Okay.
But the SIF data, that threw a curveball.
Ooh, a plot twist. Tell me more.
Instead of directly reflecting the drought stress, the SIF signals were more closely tied to the plant's overall growth.
Wait, so a plant could be parched, but still glowing brightly if it's managing to grow.
Yeah,
Doesn't that seem counterintuitive?
it does. But what's fascinating is that SIF might be telling us more about a plant's overall health and productivity rather than just its immediate stress level.
Okay, so it's not necessarily a drought alarm system,
Right.
as much as a measure of how well a plant is doing despite the challenges.
You got it.
Okay. And this can be incredibly valuable for agriculture, especially on a larger scale.
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
So instead of just looking at individual plants, we could use SIF to monitor entire fields or even regions from space using satellites.
Exactly, and that could revolutionize how we manage crops, especially in the face of climate change. I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
Plant array gives us a detailed look at how a plant is using water, while SEF gives us a sense of its overall health and productivity.
And by combining these lenses, we're getting a much richer understanding of how plants respond to stress and what makes some varieties more resilient than others.
All right, I'm hooked. We've laid the groundwork for understanding these incredible tools, but I'm eager to dive deeper into the specific findings of this research. What do they learn about the different tomato varieties and their responses to drought?
All right, well, let's get into that. So let's dive back into those tomato plants and see what happened when they faced the drought. So we had our 3 contenders, right? The standard M82, the drought-tolerant IL-52, and the drought-susceptible IL-811. And as you might expect, the drought-tolerant IL-52 showed some impressive stamina. Even under water stress, it maintained a higher level of overall growth compared to the other 2 varieties.
No surprise there.
Yeah,
It's the overachiever.
but here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
The researchers also wanted to see how the plant's final yield, meaning how much fruit they produced, related to all the measurements they were taking.
Okay, so they weren't just looking at survival,
Right.
but also how productive these plants were under duress.
Exactly. And they discovered that certain patterns in the data, specifically some indices derived from their spectral analysis, were strongly correlated with the final yield, especially for our superstar, the drought-tolerant IL-52.
So these indices are like clues that can help us predict which plants are going to be the most productive, even when facing challenges like drought.
Exactly.
But before we get too carried away, tell me more about our least drought-tolerant variety, the IL-811.
Right.
Did they just wilt under pressure?
Well, they definitely face more challenges than the other 2 varieties, but even in their data, there were some fascinating patterns that emerged.
Like what? Spill the beans.
Well, remember how we said SEF signals weren't directly mirroring drought stress? Well, in the case of the IL-811 plants, the CESA signals actually showed a noticeable dip during the recovery period after the drought had ended.
Interesting. So even though they were finally getting rehydrated,
Yeah,
their SIF signals were still whispering that something wasn't quite right.
precisely. It suggests that even after a drought has passed, There might be lingering effects on a plant's photosynthetic processes, which cease is sensitive enough to detect.
Wow, plants are way more complex than I ever realized. It's like they have this whole hidden language of signals that we're just beginning to decipher.
And with tools like Plant-Array and SIF,
Yeah.
we're finally starting to tune in and understand their whispers.
What other insights did the researchers gain about these tomato plants and their responses to drought?
One of the most interesting discoveries was related to something called stomatal conductance. Remember those tiny pores on the surface of leaves?
Right. They're important for gas exchange and photosynthesis.
That's right. And when plants face drought stress, they often close their stomata to conserve water.
Okay, makes sense.
It's a classic survival tactic.
But wouldn't that also limit their ability to photosynthesize and grow?
It does. It's a delicate balancing act. Conserve water or keep photosynthesizing to fuel growth.
So what did the researchers observe in their tomato plants? Did they all just slam their stomata shut when things got dry?
Well, that's where our drought-tolerant superstar, IL-52, showed off its unique strategy.
Okay.
During the early stages of drought stress, it actually kept its stomata open for longer than the other two varieties.
Really?
Yeah.
So it was willing to risk losing precious water to keep photosynthesizing? That seems counterintuitive, almost like a gamble.
It does, but the researchers think this might be one of the keys to its remarkable resilience.
Okay.
By keeping those stomata open longer, it's able to maintain a higher level of photosynthesis, which helps it continue growing even when water is scarce.
Wow, it's like these plants are saying, bring on the drought, we've got this. It's almost like they have this inner drive to thrive, no matter the obstacles.
That's a great way to put it. They're not just passively enduring stress, they're actively finding ways to maintain their growth and productivity.
This is all so fascinating. Okay, so we've talked about plant array, we've talked about SIF, and how it could be used to monitor crop performance on a large scale. But what about the breeding side of things? Could this research help us develop more drought-tolerant crops in the future?
Absolutely. Remember those drought-tolerant tomato plants that had that unique stomatal strategy? By understanding these kinds of physiological adaptations, breeders can select for traits that make crops more resilient to drought and other environmental stressors.
So we're essentially learning from nature's best problem solvers
Yeah,
and applying that knowledge to create more resilient crops.
exactly.
This is all incredibly exciting. And on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought. The next time you encounter a plant, take a moment to appreciate its complexity and the silent language it speaks.
You might be surprised by what you hear.
Until next time, keep exploring
Keep learning.
and keep diving deep.
See you next time.